Hello there, friends, true believers, and newcomers alike. I am Superfly Comics Guy, and I just got done shoveling a whole bunch of snow, my god, because we got a lot of it today here in Canada. But what better way to warm up than by taking a look at the Flamehead himself, Old Hot Tamale, the Spirit of Vengeance, Ghost Rider, by Jason Aaron Omnibus. Today we'll be taking a look at the cover, the spine, the contents collected, the build quality, and a flip through where I can share some of my thoughts, opinions, and recommendations on this book. So if you like the video at any point, you know how to show it, and feel free to leave your thoughts down below in the comments. But with that out of the way, hop on your hell cycles and let's get into this.
Let's ride.
Okay, so first things first, let's look at the dust jacket to this omnibus. We got this amazing looking image here by, I believe, Mark Silvestri. You know, small little indie artist, that one. No, I'm just kidding. The famous Mark Silvestri. Looks amazing, like I said. No variant covers for this omnibus. This is a pretty old omnibus. I think it came out in like 2010 or 2011. And I don't think there were many variant covers for Omnis back then. Maybe that'll change if they do a reprint of this book, fingers crossed. There is the spine. Yet another badass image of Ghost Rider there. And here's the back. Awesome looking cover gallery. Quite a few of which are done by Marko Djurdjevic, who does some awesome covers, as you will hopefully see once we start flipping through. This collects Ghost Rider number 20 through 35. That's the, I think it's the 2006 series. I'm not super familiar with the timeline of Ghost Rider series, but point is this was coming out in the mid to late 2000s. And it also collects Ghost Riders Heavens on Fire 1 through 6 by Jason Aaron, of course. Cover price of 50 US, 56 Canadian. If they do a reprint of this, I don't believe that'll still be true. I imagine if they do reprint this, it'll be something like 75 US. But yeah, we will see. I hope they reprint this because I do want a lot more people to get their hands on this. Let's have a look under the dust jacket. There we go. As I said, pretty old omnibus, so it's got that old kind of fake leather design, but we got some very nice gold foil lettering here on the front, and then, you know, like I said, the old sort of spine design where they just had a bunch of foil lettering and nothing on the back. But let's start taking a look on the inside. That's where the real juicy stuff is. Okay, so cracking open this omnibus. Quick warning before we go further. This omnibus and these stories do contain mature content, such as violence, gore, coarse language, as it should, in my opinion, with a character like Ghost Rider, but just in case you're a little squeamish about that stuff, you might want to look away. And also, I'm going to do my best to keep the story discussions very, very high level and spoiler-free as I can. It's a little tricky with this series, because it's basically one continuous story, but trust me, the stuff I talk about, it's not really going to be spoilery, so don't worry. All right, so Ghost Rider. Who is Ghost Rider? Well, Johnny Blaze was a motorcycle stuntman who made a deal with the devil to save his father's life. But, you know, as deals with the devil tend to go, they naturally, or I guess supernaturally, went sour. And now, at night, or whenever he's around evil, whenever he senses an evil presence, Johnny Blaze is transformed into the Ghost Rider, a hellish demon protector of the innocent. The other important thing to note is that Ghost Rider is not really a singular person. It's kind of more of a title. There have been several Ghost Riders across time, but for me, Johnny Blaze is my Ghost Rider. So where did my interest for this particular book come from? This is my first Ghost Rider series I've ever read. Well, I gotta be honest, I got a real guilty pleasure for that 2007 Ghost Rider movie with Nick Cage. And I mean, look at him. I always thought Ghost Rider was a really cool looking character. His aesthetics are awesome. And this series has the reputation of being his best run. So I figured, hey, might as well check it out, right? It was tricky to track down this omnibus, but, you know, I'm very happy I was able to find it for the price I did. And we got to talk about these Marko Djurdjevic covers. Like, look at them, dude. So freaking badass. Awesome, awesome artist. He did some covers for Daredevil as well. Really, really good. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about the premise of this story. So, as you probably saw towards the beginning when I opened this book up, it does kind of open up with a recap to sort of catch you up to what's going on in this series. And at the start of this story, Johnny has discovered that it wasn't Mephisto who cursed Johnny with these powers. It was actually Zadkiel, a rogue angel of heaven. So, what does Ghost Rider do? He decides to wage war on heaven to get revenge on Zadkiel. And if that premise doesn't sound badass enough to you, I don't know what will. But it's kind of interesting because this Zadkiel guy is a very behind-the-scenes sort of antagonist. You don't really see that much of him. He's kind of more talked about. His threat is more discussed rather than shown up until very, very late into this book. So anyway, first things first, Johnny needs to track down a guy named Lucas, who had a near-death experience and during so had contact with Zadkiel. And he was sent to the hospital to, be treated and recover. So Ghost Rider's got to get into this hospital to break this guy out and find out what he knows about Zadkiel. So how's he going to do that? Well, this is where you find out that Ghost Rider isn't exactly a nice guy because, hey, most superheroes would disguise themselves or sneak into the hospital through the window. What does Ghost Rider do? No, he crashes his bike into the hospital. And you're just like, my God, this guy's insane. But, later you discover that it's okay because this hospital isn't quite as it seems. So he breaks this guy out and they're on the run together from the forces of Zadkiel. It's around this time that Johnny discovers that there's actually another Ghost Rider that's appeared who's hunting down and siphoning the power from other Ghost Riders to feed Zadkiel's power. So Johnny has to stop him. Otherwise, Zadkiel's going to be unstoppable. So he has to track down the other surviving Ghost Riders and kind of put together his own mini squadron, his own team. Which is interesting because this is before Jason Aaron wrote Thor, and that whole squadron of Ghost Riders bit kind of reminded me of that bit in his Thor run where Thor has to kind of put together his realm squad, or I don't remember what they were called. So, it's kind of cool to see how parts of this run were possibly used as inspiration later for Jason Aaron's Thor run. But yeah, the conflict just continues to escalate from there. There is a bit in the middle where it kind of turns into a stereotypical big MCU battle. And quite honestly, that's the kind of part that sort of lost me for a bit. I was just more interested in Ghost Rider being like a lone wolf, just taking on demonic forces and kicking butt all on his own. So the whole kind of team up bit and huge battle, it wasn't as interesting to me. But towards the end, it picks back up again, leading to one big climactic showdown. And for all the buildup that this story does, I just wish that portion was longer, because there is a lot of buildup in this run. It's because it's all one sort of story, one arc really, leading up to that final conflict. But yeah, the writing in this story is what... oh God, look at that cover. It's so freaking cool. But yeah, the writing in this story is what really kept me hooked the whole time. The word for this story is just epic. If you want to see Ghost Rider kicking demon butt, using his hellfire blasts, riding his hell cycle, using his penance stare, generally just being the coolest guy, this is a story for you. So much fun reading this, and I read it very, very quickly as a result. But, it's not all perfect. I do have my complaints. Like I did mention, for example, I think the final showdown is a little bit rushed. There's a lot of rising action in this book, but the the conclusion happens very, very quickly. So that's a minor complaint. We can talk about the art a little bit. So I'll flip back closer to the beginning for that. Most of it is done by Roland Boschi. Here's an example towards the beginning of the book of his artwork. And, while I don't think it's necessarily bad, it is kind of flat. Like, for example, you look at Ghost Rider's profile there. There's not a lot of depth to it, or detail sometimes. Like here you can see not a lot of detail on this demon guy. It's mostly just an outline. I mean, the argument can be made that this sort of style fits the rugged nature of the character. But I don't know. I think it could have been done better. Now, the other primary artist you get in here is Tan Eng Huat. Here we can see some examples of his work, and I'll be honest, when it switched to his style, at first this really threw me, because as you can see, this is very different from Roland Boschi's style. And I'll be honest, when I got to this, I did not like the art at all. I don't know, something about, maybe it was the proportions or the faces. It was just a big gear shift, and I wasn't ready for it at the time. Didn't really like it, but I gave it a chance. I stuck with it, and I don't know, you kind of get used to it. I found that it got better over time, but yeah, definitely not my favorite style. There are some really cool moments that Tang and Huat draws well. Like here's an example from a bit later in the book. Towards the middle, where I think Tang and Huat's style works really well. Like, look at how cool that looks. Freaking Ghost Rider just coming out triumphant there. But yeah, the writing and the stuff happening in the story is just freaking awesome, man. But I gotta be honest, overall, the art lets it down. It could have been drawn so much better in a lot of parts to really help sell the impact of the story. Now, in the extra section of this omnibus, it's not huge. You got pretty classic stuff in here. You got some variant covers, and then sketchbooks by some of the artists that worked on this series, this book. So you got sketchbooks from Roland Boschi and Tang and Huat, as I mentioned, which are pretty cool. Oh God. This is really funny. So one of the demons that Ghost Rider comes across in this series is called Skinbender, who is just very clearly a demon ripoff of like Sailor Moon, which I thought was really funny. But yeah, she's a very strange one. But yeah, there you go. It's not really a big extra section. Here's some layouts. But yeah, definitely could have been more extras included in this omnibus. Now, I don't really know how meaningful the build quality is going to be to you guys because, like I said, this is a pretty old printing, but we can still talk about it a little bit. This omnibus has 534 pages. You can see the very sharp-looking eye there, which is quite nice. It means you don't really get any gutter loss with this book. It lays over really well. The page quality is nice and thick. I didn't notice any color bleed. I hope the same will be true if Marvel decides to reprint this book, which they totally should. But yeah, very good build quality with this book. But now I just want to wrap up here with some closing thoughts. Every now and then a book comes along that's written so intricately with so much depth that you can pick apart and keep finding new things each time you read it. And this is not that book. This is the book that makes you want to throw your fists in the air, blast some heavy metal music, and headbang to your heart's content while exclaiming, "F yeah!" whenever Ghost Rider does something epic. Like, we're talking about a war between heaven and hell, Ghost Rider fighting an army of spectral demon cannibals, going around the world, teaming up with other Ghost Riders, kicking ass and taking names with his hellfire blasts, penance stare. This is pure fun. I guess if you're super religious, maybe this could potentially bother you, some of the themes in here, but I don't think this book's goal is to offend anybody. It's super easy to read. You don't really need much prior knowledge at all, other than what I've already mentioned about the character. And the ending is pretty definitive, so it's nice and self-contained. Now, it's not perfect, it has its flaws, it drags a bit in the middle, and the art lets it down pretty frequently. But hey, I definitely still recommend this book, and I really hope Marvel will reprint it so more of you guys can get your hands on it. But yeah, that's been my review of The Ghost Rider by Jason Aaron Omnibus. Let me know what you thought about the video, or if you've read this series before, or if you are more familiar with Ghost Rider comics. Let me know if you have any other recommendations for a Ghost Rider series similar to this one, because this was my first one, and I'd love to read more if there are other series similar to this. But anyways, thank you so much for joining me today, guys. I hope to catch you in another video real soon. You have yourself a great day. I've been Superfly Comics Guy, and until next time, keep reading. Bye, guys.